And want to welcome all of you who are joining live. Some of you may be joining later after the fact. We are recording this and transcribing it. Also, I believe that we have muted all of your microphones. And if later in the discussion you want to ask a question, you can go in and unmute or raise your hand. We'll call on you that way. And I think if you're on phone, if I remember right, the number is the unmute is *6, I believe. But anyway, what we want to do today is welcome you to our very first Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Challenge Process Overview. We are planning on 4 of these for the various stakeholders who can be involved in this process. And this one is focused on carriers and probably will be the largest attendance of these 4 that we have. So I know some of you may have peers who cannot be on right now, but we are recording it and we will have a process to get this up linked off of our website after we've concluded all 4 of them. And we hope to have that process done later this month, so by the end of the month. So today, this call, the plan is, from an agenda standpoint, is we're going to just simply go over the process. I think you'll see a slide here in a second that'll help me walk through what it is. And very much just go through the process, what it means, and then it leads into kind of a key process for you, and that is the beginning of it all, of a registration walkthrough, so you'll know how to get involved and be ready to go when we have the portal up and going. I will be joined today by members of Guidehouse, who are our consultants who have been working with us on this entire process, as well as a representative from a company called Ready. Ready is the platform that we are utilizing for the challenge process, and you'll hear from someone from that company today as well. So after we've gone through that registration walkthrough discussion, then we'll have some next steps. That's when we'll open it up for questions and answers. We'll do our best to repeat the questions so that those of you who are maybe watching this after the fact, as we recorded it, we'll be able to know what the question is in case we see it in chat. You could also drop a question in chat and we'll make sure to read it and answer at that time. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mary from Guidehouse to take you through the overall program and challenge process.
Thanks, Brian. So before we do a demo of the registration process and the actual challenge submission, we'll give you a brief overview of the BEAD program, the challenge process, and then the timeline we're looking at. Starting out with the BEAD program, so the program has provided $42 billion to eligible entities to expand access to high-speed internet. So the program itself funds various activities ranging from planning, deployment, to adoption. As we think about the relative prioritization of these activities, the focus is really on the deployment or the infrastructure piece. So states are required to first fund unserved and underserved locations, those that are receiving under 25 over 3 megabits per second and 100 over 20. After all unserved and underserved locations have been addressed, the state can then fund community anchor institutions that lack 1 gigabit symmetrical speed. After unserved locations, underserved locations, all community anchor institutions have been addressed. At that point, should there be funding remaining, the state can then support digital equity related activities ranging from adoption, affordability, access to digital skill building. So as we look at the timeline for the next year or so, it's really bucketed into 4 different categories. Initial proposal, the state has submitted this to the NTIA. We're awaiting their final approval. Once the NTIA approves volume 1 of the initial proposal, the state can then begin its challenge process, which will be about a 100-day process comprised of 3 phases. So the challenge phase, the rebuttal phase, and the final determination phase, which will help us get at that final list of BEAD eligible locations. So these location lists will be used during the subgrantee selection process, which will kick off this summer and run through the fall. At the end of subgrantee selection, the state will then be compiling findings from challenge process, subgrantee selection, including those final award determinations, documenting it in the final proposal, and then submitting this to the NTIA for review and approval at the end of the year. Nicole, I think we can go to the next slide for challenge process overview. So the goal of the challenge process is really to help the state arrive at that final, most accurate list of BEAD eligible locations. The challenge process itself only allows challenges from various organizations ranging from nonprofits, units of local and tribal government, and broadband service providers. So at a high level, these institutions are able to challenge determinations made by the state. So essentially, whether a location is or is not eligible for BEAD funds. Looking at some of the allowable challenges, they fall under a few prescriptive categories. So broadband availability, if the challenger has knowledge that broadband service is not offered at that location, various technical features, so speed, if the service at that location falls under the unserved or underserved thresholds. Data cap, if the service imposes unreasonable data caps on the consumers, and then latency if the round trip latency of the service exceeds 100 milliseconds. Technology type, if challenger is aware that the listed technology for that location is incorrect. If the location is a residential location but only receiving business service, challengers can also contest CAI eligibility decisions. So whether an organization should or should not be classified as a community anchor institution. The same applies for enforceable commitments. So a challenger can contest whether a location is or is not an enforceable commitment, meaning broadband will be deployed through various federal obligations like CPF, RDOF, Reconnect, to name a few. And then finally, planned service, if the challenger is aware that broadband will be deployed to that location by June of 2024. So a few unallowable challenge types. Challengers cannot contest the classification of a BSL, so we cannot add or remove BSLs from the list. This would be done through the FCC challenge process. I'll turn it to Jason, who will now walk us through the timeline for the challenge process.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. So I'll talk through this and we'll have some time for questions if folks want to raise a hand or drop them in the chat. Happy to go into more details if needed. But what I'd like to walk through is the start of the challenge process. As of now, our tentative dates are in March for the opening of the challenge process. This will last about 30 calendar days. We will have the option to extend this by about 15 days should the need arise. So that's 30 to 45 days for challengers to submit a challenge using the Challenge Process Coordinator portal, which we'll walk through in a little bit. Both during that period and 30 days following the close of the challenge period will be the rebuttal phase. This will overlap from the start of the challenge period to 30 days following the final challenge being received. This will be a 30-day period after the last challenge is received. This will be for providers to rebut any challenges that have been submitted in their service areas where they would like to rebut the challenge classification. Following that will be the 30-day to 45-day period for our final determinations. During this stage, the state of North Dakota will review all challenges and rebuttals. Following the final rebuttal, 30 days after that will be the close of the final determination period, again with the option to extend that potentially by 15 days should that be needed. This will be done on a rolling basis, however, so we will be looking at this throughout the process. So from the time that the challenges are submitted through the rebuttal phase, through the end of the final determination, we will be actively updating that on a rolling basis. Following that period, the NTIA will review our final determinations and also approve that final determination. So that ultimate authority rests with the NTIA, and that will conclude the entirety of the challenge process. I'll pause there if there's any questions in the chat regarding these timeframes, but to quickly recap, the challenge period will last 30 days with an optional 15-day period. The rebuttal phase will begin following the end of the challenge phase. The 30-day period for the rebuttal phase will begin at that point. And then following the end of the rebuttal period, the final determination phase will last 30 days, again with an option to be extended by 15 days should it be required.
Keep the stream going. Jason, I'll hand it to Shane to walk through the demo, and then we'll take questions at the end.
Cool. Thanks, Mary. Let me go ahead and share my screen.
Hey, Shane. I can't really hear you. You seem it sounds muffled and far away. And we also cannot see you. But we can see your screen.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Are you able to see me?
Yep, we can see you and your screen.
Great. Okay. So, oops, here we go. So this is, I'm going to walk through the registration process and then a little bit about how to create challenges in the Ready portal. So the first site you'll be presented with is the North Dakota registration site. So you'll see here like a little introduction, and it talks a little bit about the program overview and about challenge categories and types. And so there's just some information on the registration site you can also look into. But what you'll want to do is go ahead and click on the register button to start to sign up for the challenge process. So I'm just going to go ahead and make something up for now as far as who I am, who my entity is. All right, and then fill out some basic information on this page. And then you'll be presented with a second page. So you can confirm which provider you are. If you're not one of the ones that are already on here, you'll go ahead and pick other. And then you'll type in your EIN and then your FCC registration number. So this has to be 10 digits. I don't know if this number actually corresponds to someone's FRN, but I'm going to use it just for the registration overview. You'll fill out your address and your city and state. Okay. And then you'll also add documentation if necessary so that North Dakota is able to verify who you are. You'd go ahead and click finish and you'll get an email that you've successfully asked to be registered. And what will happen there is North Dakota will go in on their side of the platform and then determine if you're an eligible entity or not, and either approve or deny your registration request. So assuming that you've been approved, you'll have an email that has what we call a magic link, and you'll click that magic link to automatically get logged into the challenge coordinator inside the Ready portal. So that's the screen that we're looking at now. And you can see you'll have your dashboard here. I already created a challenge, so you can see how the challenges look when they get created. And you'll also have a challenge map. So on this challenge map, you'll see there's a few different views you can have. I drew some zones over here, so you can draw zones because that can help you more easily create challenges. You can create zones either by drawing a polygon on the map, which is what I use here, or you can upload a shape file, and that will, you could potentially have multiple areas using that shape file. I'm not going to create any new ones because I already have these two, but then you can see over here, you can also show your zone boundaries or hide them while you're looking at the map. You have a bunch of options while you're exploring the map based on what kind of layers you want to see. So you can filter by performance category, building type, community anchor institutions, unit counts, are they a CAI or not, funding programs, the technology, and lastly, internet service providers and census block groups. There's also a few different map modes if you don't like dark mode. I happen to be into dark mode, so that's what we'll look at today. Then when you want to go ahead and create a challenge, you can either do that from your dashboard here, add a challenge, or directly from the map here. And again, you'll see the submitted challenges populate on the side of the screen as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click add a challenge so we can walk through that. I'm just going to go ahead and click provider service level, but you can see the different kinds of challenge categories here on the site. And then underneath the categories, there can be different types as well. So in this case, I'm just going to use availability. This will not be a multi-dwelling unit challenge. And then in here, you start entering some details about the challenge. So I'm just going to say that the provider does not offer technology at this location. I will pick a provider, and then I'll say copper wire. And then using the map, what I can do is zoom in. And then you can either shift click to draw to select multiple. In this case, you can only select a single one though, so I was not able to select multiple for the specific challenge. So I'll go ahead and click add to challenge, confirm. And just a heads up on this page as well, you are also able to upload a list of locations or upload an area if you want to do that instead of using the map to select like I did. So I'll go ahead and click next, and then you're responsible for uploading evidence of your challenge. So in this case, I already have a file I created. I'm just going to upload that as my evidence. I'll click next. I confirm that the challenge attestation is valid, and I can submit that challenge. And so now if I go back to my dashboard, you can see that I have two challenges on there. One was from earlier today, and one was the one I did just now. And this is where you'll see all the challenges that you submitted. I should also note that once we reach the rebuttal phase, you'll use this dashboard to also see if you've been challenged, and this is where you'll make your rebuttals. And that just about does it.
All right. So to talk through next steps, really the big thing that everyone should keep in mind is complete the registration. So that will be opening prior to the challenge period. You'll receive an email once reviewed and approved. That'll be the magic link Shane has referred to. In addition, we will be circulating challenge process materials for you all to review. This will include a guide for navigating the challenge process portal, as well as materials around the information you heard here today. So timelines, challenge process codes, as well as permissible evidence. Finally, make sure to register for the Consequence Tier D license. This Tier D is for potential recipients of federal broadband funds. This is going to be entities that participate in any of the programs and plan to file challenges. So if you've not already done so, please submit that request for a Consequence Tier D license. And then lastly, submitting permissible challenges when the process opens.
Okay. With that, Nicole, I think you can take us to the next slide and we'll open it up for questions. You can either raise your hand or drop the question in the chat. I'll repeat the question and then we'll kick it to various members of the team.
Thank you, Mary. I thought I might ask one question just to clarify, because how will the people on this call know about how to get to the registration link?
Good question, Brian. So we will be sharing an email with you all with information on next steps. So this will include where to register, how to register, where and how to request that CostQuest link. So that should be coming your way in the next week.
And for everyone on the call, I think we kind of said it, but just to be clear, our biggest gate right now is we can't start the process. We can start the registration, but we can't start the challenge process until we have our volume 1 approved by NTIA, and it's sitting with them. We believe it could be any day or any week now, but it'll be soon. So we want to get the registrations going and have that in the process by the time we get our approval.
I see a question in the chat. Someone asked, what is considered proper evidence of a challenge? So I'll note that proper evidence will differ based on the challenge type. So for example, for an availability challenge, this might include a letter or email from provider. For latency, this might include a speed test by the subscriber showing the excessive latency. No need to jot this down. The state will actually publish on its website a user guide that details the permissible evidence by each challenge type. Once volume 1 is also approved, this will also live on the state's website, so you can take a look at that as well. So all of the evidence related to each of the challenge types will be included there.
So there is an email I think we had on a slide previously, or you'll see that if you have questions, it's broadband@nd.gov. And many of you here on this call today, you know me, so you could also email me. I've got to get the other emails as well, but many of you already have my email, bdnewbie@nd.gov, bdnewby@nd.gov. And mostly I was just talking to as filler until we had another question. I think we have one, Mary.
Yep, we can hang on if there are any other questions. And then if you think of others, we have that email that Brian just referenced at the bottom of this slide. And then again, will be all of these documents, or the document you saw today, along with the user guide that I referenced and the approved volume 1, will eventually live on the state's website. Any other questions? So I see a question in the chat to clarify, if someone is building out on a current grant, it can be challenged if it would be completed by the end of the year and not June 2024. So if this is in reference to an enforceable commitment, there's no time restriction on those enforceable commitments, and they fall under certain categories. So it's Reconnect, RDOF, CPF, and I'm missing one of them, Jason, if you recall. But the June 2024 deadline is with respect to plant service. So this is separate from enforceable commitments. Basically, if a challenger is aware that a location will receive broadband service and there are plans to deploy there by June of 2024. I see a question in the chat. Do we have to wait until the rebuttal phase to learn if we, a provider, is being challenged? Assuming you have successfully registered on the ReadyNet portal, you should automatically be notified via email if a location in your area is being challenged. Any other questions?
I guess I would want to stress that this is new for all of us. So, and this is the first call we've had at this as well. We will have them for the other stakeholders that we mentioned in the call over the next few days. Should you, though, after we're done, please don't hesitate to follow up with any questions you may. This is a lot to kind of soak on, and it'll be more evident when you get the materials that we send you.
Yep. So with that, you all could be on the lookout for next steps email coming your way next week. That'll include details on registration process, the user guide, links to other documents, and then information on requesting that CostQuest license. Thanks all.
Thank you. I think we want to appreciate or thank you for all for being on the call, and thank you for. Hope you have the rest of the day. Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.